What's going on, good people? Baddest Chaplain here, hoping all is well with you and yours. Today, we're talking to my brother, the incredible musician, George Cruz. What's going on, George? How are you doing today, bro?
Thank you, man. Thank you. Doing good, doing good.
That's it.
Feel
That's
better
it.
now that I see you. I miss you,
Oh,
man.
man, I miss you too, bro. No, the feeling is mutual, man. For real, for real. But I want to get started with the beginning of your journey. You were born in Norfolk, but raised in the Philippines. So, how did growing up in the Philippines shape your initial relationship with music before you returned to the States?
Yeah, yeah. Well, my dad was he was a worship director at the church, at the home church where we were, and so I kind of just grew up with that. And one of the businesses they started over there was like a music studio school,
Mhm.
and his main goal was teaching because we were like 4 hours away from Manila, which was the
Okay.
capital. So it was kind of like rural, developing city,
Right.
um, where like most of the churches, they were all like developed by American missionaries,
Mhm. Mhm.
most of them. But most of them used cassettes and,
Mm.
like no real musicians because they didn't know how to, like
Right.
it was that rural over there.
Right. Right.
Um, so that was his one of his main missions and ministry was, to teach church musicians and
Mhm.
have them do that
Mhm.
um, instead of using cassettes. So
Right.
and he was pretty successful, man, because most of the churches over there in town now, like all came from that studio.
Come on.
So yeah, he's that was his main ministry and growing up from there.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
I was one of his first students, basically.
That's the word. That's the word.
Yep, yep. I was a test subject.
That's right. Let's work all the kinks out here and see how we can take this to the market. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Oh, for sure. Now, it's so real that you say that when you talk about the cassettes, like that takes me back, like growing up in like a Pentecostal church where they're getting ready to have, somebody sing a solo or something like that, and they would put that cassette tape on, but it was hard to cue it up, so they'd have to like reset it,
That's
rewind
right.
it. I was like, come on, y'all, get to the performance.
-1, that's what they call it, the -1.
Yes, yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, so I know you've mentioned that you bring a whole cultural perspective to the way that you play music. So in what ways does your Filipino heritage influence the way that you approach the Black American musical tradition, like especially with your playing gospel and jazz, you know?
Yeah, well, growing up over there, we were exposed to it, like,
Mhm.
but through Filipino musicians,
Mhm,
like,
mhm.
I think one of the greatest strengths of the Filipinos is that they're really good at, like, copying, and, like, learning from
Yeah,
that, like, really
right,
fast. Because um, we came from, like for the Spanish people, we were colonized by Spain for, like,
right.
400 years, and then the
Mhm.
Americans came, but that's, like it's pretty early, it's, like, 1900s and stuff, so,
Yeah.
like but but from there, it's fast how the culture was absorbed and,
Mhm.
like, um, especially with music. For
Right.
example, one of my earliest, ex expo what do you call that? The first music that I really was like, "Wait, that's really cool." Like,
Uh-huh.
it was the band VST, and their
Okay.
sound was, like, straight out of, like, uh, straight out of, like, the band Tavares?
Yeah.
Tavares, yep, yep, like,
Uh-huh.
that type of stuff, and, the stylistics,
Oh, come on.
that was their sound,
Yeah,
I was like
yeah.
but to me at that time, I didn't know where it came from,
Mhm.
but it's Black music, it's Black
100%.
American music,
Yeah.
and, so that's how I got that exposure from there,
Mhm.
is, like, what would you call that? Like, third hand experience.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah,
Essentially.
but, when I say, like, because culturally, man, like, there's a lot of Filipino, like, original Filipino music, but at the same time, like, the gen in my generation, it was that,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
it was third hand um experience.
Mhm.
Uh a lot, and there's rock as well, and like all that American stuff, but
Right.
what stuck to me was, the groove, like the soul and,
Oh, come on.
all that stuff. And actually, um I was like 8th grade. I was like, I'm quitting music because they were like, bombarding me with like all this classical stuff, and
Right.
and I'm like, at that, I love it right now. I love it right now. Don't get
No
me wrong,
doubt.
but at that time, nobody. I don't think there's a kid, unless they really love music. But
Right.
um, growing up, it was to me, it was like you got to do this, you got to do that. It's
Mhm.
basically discipline. I
Yeah.
didn't want to do discipline stuff.
No, real, real.
Um, so 8th grade, I was like, I'm not gonna do this anymore. I want to take lessons. I would, because
Mhm.
it was so bad that I was a bad student because it was like, they would pass me around with teachers because they can't handle it
Right.
'cause of how bad I was.
He was cutting up in class.
Yeah, like, I don't wanna go there, like, I just don't wanna do it. But 8th
Yeah.
grade, I was playing basketball every single day. This is what
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get to the NBA, but I never grew up.
Right.
Was I never
True.
got taller, so but
Heard,
anyway, my
heard.
my dad, we were driving one time, and he put the CD, and it was like it was like one of those pirated, like,
Yo.
those, like, mixtapes?
Yeah, the bootleg
You
tapes.
know Yep, and it was just like it's called Platinum Jazz, and in there was "Sweet Love" by Anita Baker,
Come
you know,
on.
George Benson's,
Yeah.
"I Just Wanna Hang Around You." Like, those
Come
2
on.
tracks, like, really just, I felt this is what I wanna do. This is
Yeah.
what I wanna do. This is where it's at. So,
Mhm.
you know, I I would say that's my turning point of, like, I wanna do music.
Yeah.
That's what I wanna do. Although, like, even in my younger days than that, even
Mhm.
before 8th grade, and, realizing that, it was instilled to me by my dad, like, "You're gonna be a musician," in fact, it's in my name. He was a choral conductor. My name is George Frederick, George Frederick Handel.
Come
Yep. Hallelujah Chorus and all that kind of
Yes.
stuff.
Right.
So,
Handel's Messiah, right.
yep, and I was like, whenever people would ask me, "What do you wanna do when you grow up?" "I'm gonna be a musician. I'm gonna
Yeah.
be, I'm gonna make music for the Lord," and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't understand it then, and, like I said, I didn't wanna do music at all.
Mhm.
But what's funny is that when it came to, like, the point time to go to college and stuff, he was like, "You're not doing music, you have to do business." You
Oh, you
gotta
see
realize
the
this.
switch.
Yep, yep. But I'm like, "No, I'm gonna do music," so I did
Right.
music, but I shoulda got in business, man.
No, man,
No,
like, listen, that double major is real, bro, like, this is
but the thing is that what I'm realizing right now is that music, I mean, he was right, because you can
Mhm.
learn music away from school, but,
Right?
like, you know, I think I mean, I learned a lot from where I studied, of
Mhm.
course, but, now that I'm in the industry, there's a
Yeah.
lot of, like, business stuff that you
So
really
much.
have to, just to make, to
A
feed
living.
feed my family,
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Is
This is
that's
real.
that's where it's at. Because I mean, you could be an artist and stuff, but yeah, you gotta eat, you gotta
You
do,
gotta eat. Got little ones waiting on us
I know,
hungry.
man. I know.
It's really real.
Yeah, but yeah,
Really. It's funny to hear you say that, because it makes you think of 2 things. Like, one, with you, having the name after, Handel, makes me think about when, Coltrane was little and he would see, I'm playing, Love Supreme or, like,
yeah.
some joint like that, My Favorite Things or something, and he'd be like, "That's not Coltrane, I'm Coltrane." And I was like
Yeah.
and it just, it made me think about that, but also even with, your time in school, I don't have many regrets from my time in college, but one thing I often wish I did is I wish I had double majored. I was an English major, but I wish I had majored in music as well because
Yeah,
I spent so much time in the music library listening to music while doing my work, but I never like took any classes, and I really wish I did. So
yeah,
that's one thing I
yeah,
would change, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
man. But you're a staple in the jazz scene, particularly the jazz scene in Richmond, Virginia. What would you say it is about the musical community in Richmond that allows your specific sound, which brilliantly blends jazz with modern harmonies? What allows it to thrive, man?
Man, it's the people around me. It's the
Mhm,
people over here, and it's a great blessing that the Lord put me here and dropped me off here for some reason, and
mhm.
that's what it is. It's the people.
Yeah.
I think the energies are it doesn't clash, but it goes with them, and
Mhm,
and I'm loving it. I'm really loving it, and I love the people over here.
mhm.
Um, if it weren't for the people, I wouldn't be here. Honestly,
Yeah.
like
True.
it's really they're it's a growing jazz community in
Mhm,
Richmond, and it's
mhm.
always been like that, I think. And from what I've heard, because I'm still kind of new here,
Real.
but hearing from the more rooted cats in here,
Yeah.
they like you know this was also kind of like New York type of thing, like,
Mhm, mhm.
and at the same time, you got a lot of like legends, coming from here. Like Ella
Yeah.
was from here, and
Right.
you know, so there's a lot of roots. There's a lot of things here that and it doesn't just go away. Like
Nah.
there's history here, music is here.
Mhm.
So yeah, man. I mean, Richmond.
Yeah.
I'm loving Richmond right now and the people in
No
it.
doubt.
I think that's the most important part with the scene right now is that it's pretty together.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of it's not like we have like 30,000 musicians like in New York,
Right,
but
right, everybody's
you
just
know
fighting for a piece, right.
yeah, right now it's growing and it's growing wonderfully, and
Mhm.
people are helping each other. And,
That's alright.
yeah, yeah, it's pretty
That's a
good.
good space. No, I love that you mentioned that because it makes me think about, from my lens on hip hop scenes, like the healthiest scenes are the ones where people wanna collaborate and
Yeah,
work together.
yeah,
And I think that Richmond is such a great town in that it's small enough where, like, you really can just know everybody. Like, it's you
yeah,
know what I mean? Like, it's not
true.
impossible to know everybody, and therefore you can collaborate. Like, I think about going once again on the rap side of things, the way Skills brought all these local poets in
Yeah,
on his latest album, and then when he won a Grammy, they all won Grammys, and I think that's just ill, the
yeah,
way you can just elevate a whole scene,
yeah.
basically, you know?
Yep, and I think what also because it's small enough that, or at least part of the growing is I think the hunger. Like everybody's hungry.
Mhm. Mhm.
You would like I think most of the people that I play with and that I watch outside there, and because they're hungry,
Yeah.
so they're out there creating, the stuff that they create really blooms out because they're hungry. They
Mhm.
mean business. They're, I mean, not physically hungry, but you know what I
No,
mean.
but, yeah, no, that, like,
Yeah,
they care about it, and which I
yeah,
think
yep, yeah.
makes a
There's
world
fire
of
in
difference. There's a fire in
there's
their
fire.
belly,
Yep.
100%, 100%. You often talk about the importance of beauty, swing, and honesty. So, of those 3, George, which one is the most difficult to maintain when you're in the middle of a live performance? Like, you're in the heat of it. Which one's the hardest to maintain?
It depends on the day for sure.
Mhm,
Um, when you talk about honesty, sometimes it depends on the venue too.
mhm,
When it's let's say it's not a listening room, but like a restaurant, like a
mhm,
cafe type situation, it's a little bit hard to be honest because you want to keep the gig and
mhm.
not just play out your whole heart. But there's
Yeah.
sometimes what's in your heart is like not for everybody.
That's real
you
too.
know so it's hard to be honest at that situation. But in a listening room, you know now you have to think about where you are. Like,
Mhm,
what's the demographic of it? How can I be effective? How can I be, how can I touch these people? And how
mhm,
can I be, how can I share my joy to them?
mhm,
And, balancing all that stuff, the
mhm.
beauty and the honesty,
Yeah.
it's just like, so to me, it's all of them because music, it has little to do with music, I believe.
Mm.
And it has a lot to do with life
Uh-huh.
and how your personality is. So
Yeah.
what you take in, what you read, what you watch, what you listen to, that's what comes out.
Mhm.
Um, like this January, I was mainly writing for a record, and I'm realizing so many things, man. I'm like, this stuff sound like there's some stuff that I wrote, and I'm like, threw it in the trash because I'm like, why do I get to write like that? And I look back, what did I do this past week? What have I been feeding my heart? And that
Yeah,
comes out, you
it
know,
does.
and that's the honesty part of it. And it almost feels like you don't have to be honest when it's music.
Yeah.
You sit on there,
Come on.
whatever comes out of you is whatever you want, you know?
Right.
So that's why it gets kind of scary sometimes. You gotta
Mhm.
get your stuff right.
That's so
You
real.
gotta get your heart right, mind right. Because
Mhm.
if it's not, it comes out. And,
Bleeds out.
you know, so yeah,
I love
it's
that you say that, man, 'cause it reminds me of a part of my journey as a writer where I kinda had to evaluate. I was like, "Man, I'm writing nothing but these sad, heavy poems, man. I'll have some joy in my life too." And it made me really switch up and just add to it. Not like I was avoiding talking about difficult things, but I wanted to add more of the beauty in my life to what I was writing. I didn't want to only feel like I'm going to pick up that pen or go to the computer when something heavy's there. I also
yeah,
want to be able to write beautiful things too. So I
yeah,
definitely feel you on that. Like what you're feeding yourself will come out in the work, you know?
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Most definitely. We've talked about how much soul music and gospel is a part of your sound and your roots. I'm curious when you're in that space of maybe playing a gig somewhere that is expecting much more of a traditional jazz experience. How do you do that and honor that while still leaving room for the raw emotional influence of genres like gospel and soul?
Yeah. It's well, the thing is that you can, when it's your gig, you can do the set list yourself, and so there's a lot of freedom in there.
Mhm.
But it's the rhythms.
Yeah,
It's the rhythms,
no doubt.
I believe that rhythms, they are their own language and
Mhm,
culture, and
mhm.
you know so it comes out, it comes out like what was that, one of my last gigs, we played Stevie Wonder's You Are the Sunshine of My Life.
Yeah,
So
uh-huh.
usually it's like a R&B beat, right?
Yeah,
So that's like modern changes and modern melody and type stuff, but the underlying groove, we were doing it in a more traditional type Latin
yeah,
sound, so it's a it's kind of like a mixture of both, and it works.
right.
Love it, and I love it. It makes me feel good,
Mhm.
and it's soulful, but
Yeah,
at the same time, it's like it's a different type of soul, but it's
no
soul.
question,
Yeah.
no question. It's still that authentic, that realness is there
Yep.
still,
Yep.
no doubt about it. So, thinking about your work as the band leader for the George Cruz Trio, how do you communicate that goal of honesty and authenticity to your bandmates? Is that something you feel like you have to discuss in rehearsal, or is it something y'all just feel when you're in a performance?
One of the one of the main ways that I keep everybody real is, honestly, we don't talk much.
Yeah.
We just sit on there, and whatever comes out,
Uh-huh,
especially
uh-huh.
in live situations. And for some reason, I feel more comfortable
Mhm.
when we don't plan anything.
Heard.
When I think it was uh one of our heroes, Joe Henderson. He
Yeah.
said that when you go in with unfamiliarity,
Mhm.
there's a different energy, and you know that comes out, and I think that's really honest.
Mhm.
Because you're not thinking about anything. What
Yeah.
comes out.
Mhm.
And you just have to, like, I guess all the work gets done before that.
Mhm.
So like what I said with life and music earlier is kind of the same, and we keep ourselves honest and um like that. With
Yeah.
we sit down. I mean, sometimes I have a set list, sometimes I don't have a set list. We roll with it.
Mhm.
It depends most of the time with the energy of the crowd, and how everybody feels. You would feel each other without talking. Body language,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff, and
Right, right.
um, yeah, that just keeping it keeping it real.
Mhm.
As if because I'm a big believer as well with conversations.
Mhm.
When it's not planned, you just talk, something comes out of your mouth, you can't control Z, and
Yeah. It's
that's
out
what
there.
it is.
Yeah.
Whatever that person felt with whatever you said, that's what it is.
Mhm.
And I think that's still honesty, even if you didn't mean to say that.
Real.
There's honesty there. You know, it might have been a mistake from your end, but it's still honest. That's who
Yeah.
you are. You know,
Yeah. I would argue that's more honest than if I planned it,
sure, that's what I'm saying.
you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
100%, man. 100%.
yeah.
So beyond being a performer, you're also an educator. How has teaching private lessons changed the way that you personally practice?
It I'll be honest, man, it taught me more
Yeah?
than I taught them,
Mm.
you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
It really has taught me more than I taught them. I mean,
Mhm.
that's one of my biggest things with teaching is that the more that you're willing to learn, the more that you can teach, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, it helped me a lot, not just to understand music more and music theory and what I teach them and
Mhm.
technique and all that stuff, but with the student itself.
Yeah.
I don't pry into their business or anything like that, but with how they interact, with how, you know, basically I'm dealing with humans and I give them problems,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I kind of guide them how to solve that musical problem,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And you can see how they react, and you can see how they try to find an answer, and
Mhm.
everybody's different.
Yeah.
And that it taught me just really how to deal with people as well and deal with myself.
Mhm.
And you know, and like I said, it taught me more than I taught them because
Yeah.
of course, I think they were mainly focused on the music, but I see something else when I'm teaching music.
Yeah.
It was
Dig that.
so I'm really grateful for my students. I'm really
Mhm.
grateful for my students.
Yeah.
They I'm glad to teach them, and they tell me they're glad that they're being taught, but they don't know they're teaching me. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. So
So, what would you say has been the most important lesson, whether it's what you're teaching them or what they've taught you?
most important lesson throughout this is that you know whatever craft it may be, whatever your business may be, it's people.
Yeah.
You know, people matter. It's being human and being in touch with reality. You
Mhm.
know, you'll see about the students. You'll see students that are really weak at solving problems and receiving mistakes,
Mhm.
and you can see how much more love they need.
Yeah. Mhm.
And from there you see, like, other people and when they act the way that they act, and maybe it threw you off or something like that. There's something else that's
Mhm,
going on in their lives, you know. It's
mhm.
it's not just it's not just they're evil or anything like that. But,
Yeah,
you know, it made me, you know, that's one of the lessons I think. Yeah.
most definitely, man. So, we know that jazz is a music that's often passed down through mentorship. So, how do you see your role as an educator in preserving this tradition for a younger generation of players?
It's very important, man, you know, it's very important. Um, when you teach, you kind of check a lot of boxes.
Mhm,
First of all, you if it's a living, of course, you're creating more customers for yourself, more
mhm,
clients. Um, Another is that it's friendship as well,
mhm.
with mentorship and, teaching. You
Yeah,
can't just like be there for you to be an effective teacher. You cannot be disconnected. So you
yeah,
have to connect at some point, you know.
mhm.
It's very important. It's a big role because I've never forgotten any of my teachers at all.
Nah, I
Um,
can't. How could you?
I so I'm sure, that's why it's a pretty big, you know, pressure as well as a teacher because you have, like I said earlier, it comes out. What goes
Right.
in comes out, and you know, so you better be teaching these people like, the right
Mhm.
stuff or else and they'll never forget that,
Yeah,
you know.
for
Um
real.
yeah, yeah. It's a big role, man. It's I don't see it as, I don't think about it often as like something that I'm high and mighty, that I have power over these people.
Right,
But
right.
it's almost like I don't deserve this. But
Mm,
that feeling makes me work harder.
yeah.
So yeah.
It sounds like you honor it, like you realize that in that space you're dealing with something sacred.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that is true.
yeah,
Because it is.
no
Because
doubt.
it is. I think everything that connects you with people, it
Yeah,
could be any type of craft. It could, it doesn't have to be teaching, as long as you're dealing with people, you're talking to people, that there's something, it's
yeah,
sacred. It's
no doubt.
another soul.
Yeah, for real,
So yeah.
for real. Most definitely, man. So switching gears a bit, you're not only talented, as a musician, but also as a chef and as a hooper. You know what I mean? So, how do you find that the discipline of playing ball or the creativity that you express in the kitchen, how does that bleed into your music?
It does a lot, man. So I wouldn't say I'm a disciplined Cooper these days.
He said that's the
It's
past,
been
man.
cold outside.
Yeah, facts, facts, facts.
You know how it is. But
uh,
you know, there's creativity in those three things, like
mhm,
music, sports, and culinary arts. All connected with like creativity, and but one of it is like one of the things is that the humility to like look at somebody else's work
yeah.
before you create something yourself. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, in all of those three things, all those three crafts, you have to look at the recipe first
Yeah.
before you can actually, you have to taste good food that somebody else created first.
Mhm.
You have to have seen, Allen Iverson play
Come
before,
on.
you can actually cross over somebody, or
Preach,
try to.
preach. Right,
You
right.
know? You have to transcribe, Charlie Parker before you can actually
Mm,
say that, you know, or you can even try to play some bebop. So,
yeah,
and it takes a lot of humility because everybody thinks that, you just create and you just turn it on and you create.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But like how a baby would learn how to speak,
Mhm.
the baby's gotta listen to us first and,
Right,
be with us and all that stuff.
right.
So I think, and that's, you got to be humble enough to like you know, to open up yourself and absorb first before you can say, this is mine. I've created something new, you
No
know?
question.
Yeah.
No question. What you're saying reminds me so much of a quote I heard from Cornel West where he talks about before you find your voice, you find an echo,
Yep.
you know? And so
That's right.
before you can play and sound like yourself, you might be trying to echo Bird or somebody.
That's good.
That's
That's
real.
good.
That's really good.
That's it.
Yeah, man. So also in that same vein, we talked about you as a teacher, but as a father, how has that perspective affected the way in which you create music?
Man, it's the same thing, I I believe my kid is my son has taught me more,
Yeah.
because I'm like, wait, because I look at him and how he absorbs stuff, you
Uh-huh.
know, and I'm like, if I can do that exact same thing with like little things in life, you know, I'd be able to learn it. I'll be
Yeah.
able to learn something.
Mhm.
So, and that comes with it now. Now that we're adults, the only difference is that we can control where we put ourselves in. We control who our parents can be.
Mhm.
Who we can control who we look up to
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah, most definitely. So, what would you say is next for the George Cruz trio, man? What you got coming down the pipeline, man?
yeah, man. This February we recorded uh a record. I think it was the first. Yeah, it was February 1st actually.
Mhm.
So I just got to put it in CDs and ready to go.
Yeah, here for it.
Yeah.
Here for it, man.
So we have that and getting more gigs and but I think I'm in a transition of like jobs right now currently,
Mhm. Mhm.
wherein you know because most of my time right now is still kind of like teaching, which I
Yeah.
love,
Mhm.
but if if the opportunity comes up, the next one, I that would free up a little bit more of my time and focusing more on the craft and writing and recording and
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and of course the business side of things too. It would definitely help.
Mhm.
Um, because you know how kind of getting old is. It's
Man.
because I the transition of like I can do everything right now
Come on.
throughout the week.
Come on.
You sometimes hit that wall where am I spreading myself too thin? You know,
S Speak my
and
language.
you hear it. You see it. You hear it in the music. It comes out, and
Mhm.
you hear it back, and you're like, you know, something needs to be focused on.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, but of course, that's when the hardest part, at least for me, one of the
Uh-huh.
hardest part is like getting on your craft and at the same time, you know, making a living out of it. Of course,
Yeah.
it's something fun. It's
Mhm.
something. That's the thing with music is that it's cool and all, but you still have to go through the hard stuff, for
Yeah.
you to be able to do this fun stuff.
Totally.
And I think it's been true for um generations
Yeah.
with a craft like that. But
And that
it is a gift. It's a joy, and
truly.
I'm I'm really blessed that the Lord has given me this type of work. You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
so yeah,
Yeah, there it is, man. So I want to close with a little bit of a lightning round. So I'm gonna ask you 3 rapid fire questions.
let's do it.
Um, so first is, what is one album every aspiring jazz pianist must listen to?
Hmm. I would say um um, Bud Powell's solo album.
Okay.
Yeah, uh, I think it's uh, Jazz Piano Giant.
Mhm,
Yep,
mhm.
yep. Bud Powell.
Heard.
He is, he's one of the fathers of bebop. He's
Mhm,
with Charlie Parker and all them.
mhm.
Different schools, but you know the bebop. Um, if you have that sound in you, like everybody would understand. You'd be able to converse with other folks. You know.
Ooh, yeah, yeah. With you, with you. What is the best Filipino dish to eat after a long gig?
After a long gig, man, you talking about this. This is kind of deep cut. You know,
Come on.
not a lot of Filipinos know this dish, but it's called Batangas Goto.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so this is basically beef innard soup.
Okay.
Yeah, so like organ meats,
Yeah.
and it's very clean, of course, but
No, 100%.
it's great. You eat it with rice and raw onions.
Come
Dude,
on.
if it's like late night,
Yeah,
that's where that's where I'm at.
I hear
But
you.
unfortunately, it's not available here. I have to make it myself. So
Yeah.
I miss home too.
Of course, man.
But this is a home for me too, man.
That of
I'm
as
grateful.
it
So
becomes, man. That's
yeah,
really it. So now basically you saying you gotta meal prep it. You gotta have it ready.
you gotta like either that or nothing at all.
Yeah, nothing at all, right, exactly. You can't start
Yeah.
that at 1
Yep. Yep.
AM.
Yep. Yep.
And lastly, what's the most honest jazz standard to play when you're feeling inspired?
You said, "Well, what's the
The
most?"
most honest jazz standard to play when you're feeling inspired?
I would say the blues.
Mhm,
The blues.
mhm.
That's the root of all this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So whatever you're feeling, if you don't know what you want to play next, blues always works, and it
Got
always comes out.
Mhm.
Blues can be sad. The blues can be happy. The
Right.
blues can be angry
Mhm.
and mysterious. All that stuff. But it's not a single standard with the blues.
Yeah.
The 12-bar blues
Heard, heard.
comes out.
No doubt. So if folks wanna learn more about you and what you got going on, where can they find you, George?
You can find me on my website, georgecruzmusic.com, and all
Mhm.
my socials are there too, George Cruz
Uh-huh.
Music. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I usually post my most of my gigs in Instagram. Yeah,
Heard,
George
heard.
Cruz Music. Yep.
Absolute, man. Well, y'all heard it. Go check out George Cruz music. He has a new album that released in February. Go check out for more
About
information.
to release. About
About to
to
release.
release it.
About to release. It's recorded in February, about to release. So
That's right.
you gotta holler at him, see when you can get that CD, that official tissue once it releases. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Absolute. But friends, I want to thank y'all so much for rocking with us. As always, you can catch us at baddestchaplain.com. We're on Instagram, Facebook at Baddest Chaplain, YouTube at Baddest Chaplain, and find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, Substack, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. But until next time, much love and be kind to someone. We talk to y'all soon. Peace.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man, for sure.